Hello everyone, and thank you for watching Preparing Your UNCG Academic Appeal, sponsored by the Students First Office. This video is intended for UNCG students who have encountered academic suspension or dismissal during their most recent term and are interested in submitting an academic appeal. The purpose of this video is to provide students with the information they need to submit the strongest appeal possible. Before we get started, I would like to show you how to navigate the Students First Office website, which is where you will find critical information regarding your appeal. To access our site, type studentsfirst.uncg.edu into your web browser. On the home page, you will find the Students First Office business hours and walk-in hours, our physical location and contact information, and a calendar of events. From there, you should click the Appeals tab, and here you will find information about many types of appeals, including financial aid appeals and academic suspension and dismissal appeals. On the Suspension and Dismissal Appeals page, you will find a description of the academic appeals process, copies of relevant forms and templates, and important dates you will need to complete your academic appeal. The rest of the video will feature an overview of the academic appeal process at UNCG and answer the following questions. Who should submit? What merits a strong appeal? What are the components? What are some tips for drafting an appeal? How do I submit? When will my appeal be reviewed? When will I be informed of the decision? How can I get some assistance? And what are my chances? First, let's discuss who should submit an academic appeal. Any student who would like to request to remain enrolled at UNCG during their term or terms of academic suspension or dismissal may consider an academic appeal. Students facing suspension or dismissal who do not submit an appeal will be prohibited from enrolling at UNCG for one fall or spring semester if suspended, and one academic year if dismissed. Please note that an approved academic appeal does not alter a student's academic standing, and not every appeal is approved, even after advisor review. A second critical piece is that the academic appeal process is intended for students who experienced extenuating circumstances that led to their academic suspension or dismissal. For the purposes of the appeal process, extenuating circumstances means circumstances that could not have been predicted and were outside of the student's control. The strongest appeals are based on documented extenuating circumstances that interfered with a student's success. Here are some examples. Personal or family emergency, such as the loss of a loved one, or other events, such as traffic accidents and legal concerns. Unanticipated medical issues, in particular, those that inhibit attendance or ability to complete coursework in multiple classes. Psychological distress. Examples are depression or anxiety that have been diagnosed and or treated during the most recent term. Unexpected financial difficulty, such as unanticipated need to increase work hours, or financial burdens that interfere with daily life or access to the materials needed for academic success. If you feel you have a basis to appeal based on the information we have covered so far, you will need to submit several documents. First, you will need to complete the appeal form. This will serve as the cover sheet for your appeal packet. Second is your letter of explanation, a 1 to 2 page document explaining the extenuating circumstances you experienced and how they impacted your academic performance. You will also need official documentation to support any extenuating circumstances you reference in your letter. The next component is an academic success plan, a document detailing your plan for achieving academic success in the coming semester if your appeal is approved. If you are a junior or senior, meaning you have earned at least 60 semester hours as indicated in UNCG, you will also need an approved graduation plan. Next, we will spend a few minutes going into more detail about each of these items. The appeal form is where you log important identifying information, such as the type of appeal you are submitting. The same form is used for 3 kinds of appeals at UNCG: academic appeals, financial aid appeals, and joint appeals, which allow students to submit an academic and financial aid appeal using one packet of information. The type of appeal you submit will determine where you should submit your packet, so please pay attention to the directions provided on the appeal form. If you would like written instructions pertaining to the appeal process, that information is available on the form itself, and it's a good idea to read the form thoroughly before starting your appeal packet. You may find a copy of the form on the Students First Office webpage at studentsfirst.uncg.edu under the Appeals tab. A well-written letter of explanation is critical to the success of an appeal. Your letter should address 3 questions. 1. What extenuating circumstances led to your academic suspension or dismissal? And in your letter, you should note any supporting documentation you will include. 2. How did the extenuating circumstances negatively impact your academic performance? 3. How have your extenuating circumstances been resolved? Or, how will you manage these circumstances going forward so that they will no longer impact your ability to succeed academically? You will have an opportunity to answer this last question in more depth on the Academic Success Plan portion of the appeal, but you should also respond to it in your letter, though in less depth. Next, it is important to keep the following in mind as you describe your extenuating circumstances in your letter. In your description, make sure it is clear that what you experienced was unanticipated and out of your control. Make sure you demonstrate the severity of the circumstances, in particular, how they were substantial enough to impact your academic success over an entire semester, or multiple semesters if applicable. Extenuating circumstances should never be the difficulty level of a course or course instructor. Academic difficulty or rigor is not an appropriate rationale for an appeal. It is crucial that any extenuating circumstance you describe in your letter is supported by official documentation, and more on that in a moment. Here are some tips for you as you compose your letter. While you should take care to compose a well-formatted and well-written document, your letter will not be evaluated based on official formatting. A simple, polite greeting and statement of purpose is a great way to start. And an example of this would be, Dear Appeals Committee, I am writing to appeal my academic suspension for the fall 2017 term. Keep in mind that the committee may read more than 100 appeals at one time, so you want to be thorough but also clear and concise in your letter. To remain clear and concise, be sure to focus on key information and discuss events in order to establish a sense of timing. Also, it's helpful to include specific dates, especially as they align with your documentation. Avoid any language that begs or blames others. Stick to the facts and use neutral language. End with a courteous salutation, such as "Thank you for your time." Documentation is crucial to the success of an appeal, and appeals submitted without documentation are not approved by the committee. Documentation serves 2 purposes for the committee. First, it demonstrates the existence of extenuating circumstances as described in your letter. Second, it demonstrates that circumstances have been resolved or are being managed to recommend your success in future terms. Next, we will review some examples of official documentation, and these examples also appear on the appeal form. An example of official documentation of a medical issue includes notes or paperwork from a physician's office. To document a family death, it is important to submit a copy of the obituary, death certificate, or copy of the funeral program, though not necessarily all 3. Your name should be listed as a surviving relative. The personal and family emergency category covers a lot of ground, and to document these circumstances, you can submit anything from insurance claims to police reports and court records as they apply to your letter. For psychological distress, you should provide documentation from a service provider and diagnosis, if applicable. Some situations are harder to document than others. Feel free to reach out to the Students First Office to brainstorm documentation. Here are some tips for submitting effective documentation. It is important that your documentation is official, in other words, on letterhead or certified by a notary. The weakest form of official documentation is a notarized statement from a parent or family member, but it is better to have this than no documentation at all. Documentation should reflect dates that match your letter, and the timing should align with the semester or semesters you are discussing in your letter. Official diagnosis and treatment should be included in documentation, where applicable. You should document the ability to be successful going forward, especially if the extenuating circumstance is a medical or psychological issue. We urge you to be strategic with your documentation. You should provide enough documentation to thoroughly back up the circumstances you discuss, but also make sure the information the committee needs to see isn't buried in lots of pages of unnecessary documentation. For example, you should not submit every piece of paper you've gotten from the doctor's office, but instead select 1 or 2 pages showing critical information such as name, date, and diagnosis. After your letter of explanation and supporting documentation, the next item of focus is your academic success plan. The goal of the academic success plan is to demonstrate your plan for achieving academic success if you are allowed to remain enrolled at UNCG during your academic suspension or dismissal. Even though you will have covered this information in your letter, it is important to briefly outline the challenges you faced and follow up with SMART goals, or goals which are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, so that you can address those challenges. The Financial Aid Office offers a template for the Academic Success Plan, and we recommend that you follow it closely. You will find a copy of this template on the last page of the appeal form packet and PDF available on our website. As you complete your Academic Success Plan, please keep the following in mind. Your success plan should serve as a natural complement to your letter. For example, if your extenuating circumstances in your letter pertain to a medical issue, a success plan focusing on receiving tutoring would not be appropriate. Rather, it would be best to brainstorm solutions in your success plan that target the concerns you presented in your letter, namely the medical issue itself, if it were to persist. If you are a junior or senior, there is a 5th component of your academic appeal packet. Remember, if you are uncertain of your class standing, refer to your transcript in UNC Genie. If you have earned 60 hours or more, you must submit a graduation plan with your appeal. The graduation plan serves as a map for your future semesters leading to graduation, and there is a template available on the Students First Office webpage. All graduation plans must have prior approval by an academic advisor before they are reviewed by the committee. You should first contact your assigned academic advisor or advising center, but you may also submit your graduation plan to an advisor in the Students First Office for approval. Please note that the Students First Office cannot approve graduation plans for students with majors in the College of Visual and Performing Arts, the Bryan School of Business, and students who are majoring in Environmental and Sustainability Studies or International and Global Studies. If you do submit your graduation plan to the Students First Office for approval, make note of the following review process. You should first submit your draft to students@uncg.edu. Your plan will be reviewed by an advisor within 3 business days. Then, you will receive an email with approval or necessary revisions. Please note that each draft you submit to the Students First Office requires a 3 business day review period. The Students First Office will not accept unsigned graduation plans on posted appeal deadline days. Please plan ahead and submit your graduation plan for review prior to this time. As you complete your graduation plan, keep the following in mind. Since the graduation plan requires prior approval, and sometimes this process can take several days, we recommend that you start on your graduation plan as soon as possible so that it may be reviewed while you work on your letter, documentation, and success plan. You should refer to your DegreeWorks evaluation in UNC Genie and other campus resources to complete a thorough draft of your graduation plan before submitting it for advisor approval. Keep in mind that once you have a graduation plan signed by an academic advisor, it is your responsibility to include it with the remainder of your academic appeal packet, even if the approving advisor is a member of the Students First Office. The committee will review graduation plans for accuracy and how realistic they are, so consider the following carefully. Make sure that your remaining degree requirements are met and that courses are listed in the correct sequence and include applicable prerequisites. Keep in mind that your grade history, likelihood to graduate in the selected major, and the number of courses you take in a given term play into the committee's review. Now that we have covered all 5 components of an academic appeal, let's discuss how to submit the appeal. All appeals must be received in full by 5:00 p.m. on the submission deadline. This date is listed on the Students First Office webpage and in the academic standing notification you received from the University Registrar's Office. While you are encouraged to begin working on and to submit your appeal as soon as possible, A decision will not be made until the committee review date. If you are handing in your appeal in person, please take it directly to the front desk in the Students First office. You may also submit your appeal by email to students@uncg.edu. Before submitting in person or by email, make sure you have assembled a complete appeal packet and turn in everything at once. If you are submitting a financial aid appeal only, please refer to the appeal form for submission directions. Once your appeal has been reviewed and a decision has been made, you will receive notice of the committee's decision via your UNCG email account. This email typically arrives later in the afternoon or early evening on the committee review date. It is important to note that all committee decisions are final and cannot be appealed or overturned. To submit the strongest appeal possible, we encourage you to have your appeal reviewed by a Students First Office staff member who can help you review the information you provide in your letter of explanation, evaluate your documentation to ensure all appropriate materials are included in your appeal, and develop an alternative plan for continuing academic progress if your appeal is denied. To have your appeal reviewed by a Students First Office staff member, call the Students First Office at 336-334-5730 to schedule an appointment. You also have the option to attend walk-in hours for assistance with your appeal. The walk-in meetings are typically a maximum of 15 minutes in length and are intended for final review of a polished draft. Please note that while the Students First Office staff will work with you to help you draft a strong appeal, preliminary review does not guarantee that your appeal will be approved by the Academic Appeals Committee, which is comprised of many offices, individuals, and perspectives across UNCG. Many students ask staff in the Students First Office to estimate the likelihood that their appeal will be approved. While we can't provide a percentage for you, you should know that approved appeals are those that contain all required appeal components, are based on extenuating circumstances, are supported by official documentation, are submitted prior to the submission deadline, and follow the tips and suggestions discussed throughout this video. Please note that closely following the directions provided may help you form a strong appeal, but does not guarantee that the committee will approve it. If you have questions or would like to discuss the academic appeal process further, you may always contact the Students First Office by phone, email, or come by in person. Remember, for updated deadlines, templates, and other critical information, please visit our webpage at studentsfirst.uncg.edu. And finally, best wishes with your appeal.